So here we are in Atlanta at our Leadership Unplugged series for AMC 2019, and I am here with my friend Alena Anderson de Lay, who is a global workforce mobility consultant. Alena, thank you so much for being with me. How are you?
My pleasure. Wonderful.
Good. All right. So, you know, as leaders, we often sort of get bombarded and people think we don't have an inbox. I want you to start off. Give me a snapshot of what's in your inbox.
I would say it's a lot of questions about how to be more inclusive within their workforce, a lot of diversity and inclusion and equity questions, specifically about change management, how to include more members of the workforce in the decision-making process and how to diversify the workforce, but once the numbers are there, how to make people feel more inclusive and create a more equitable environment in the workforce.
So, you know, this is so fascinating to hear you talking about this. So I want to pull through two threads on this. One is that, what do you believe is the role that mobility can play in helping businesses achieve their diversity and inclusion objectives?
That's a great question, and I really see mobility professionals doing various roles, but most as subject matter experts and understanding that diversity has layers. It's not just looking at certain demographics, but looking at mindset and also looking at different cultural sensitivities that are involved with this topic, but we approach it in a different way where we are accustomed to changes. Change is a norm for global mobility professionals, and when you address diversity matters in that regard, you really need to take a step back and look at all the layers and address the organizational culture.
Within that too.
Yes.
So I want to talk, you talked about, I love when you talked about, sort of the temperament element of diversity, because it's so easy to sort of dive into just the demographic element because it's easy to measure and all that. So here's my question for you. How do you then, or maybe you do or don't get this in your inbox, but how do you address like unconscious bias?
Oh, that's really, first of all, addressing unconscious bias is something that we all have to do, regardless of where we are in the organization. We all do it in one shape or matter or form in our day-to-day lives. So it's being honest with ourselves that we all have unconscious bias and how we deal with that, having those difficult conversations in a constructive way where each individual is willing to take a step back and deprogram ourselves. So addressing it on an individual basis as well as a collective basis within organizations. So that can hinder us from not only recruiting the best talent, but also hinder us from being innovative, because we may not value the input of certain members of the team because
just the bias.
There are assumptions made because of who they are, which institution they were educated at, their country of origin. So there's a lot of factors that come into play. And unless we hold the mirror up to ourselves, we really never have the opportunity to be better human beings.
So you know what, I think this whole area is so fascinating to me. I didn't even think about it from the university you go to. So you just said that, it's like, wow. So then I want to talk about, what is the role of leadership with all the diversity and inclusion and all the things that are going on with, all the various social things that are going on. Where do you see the role of leadership?
I think leadership has to own it and also create the buy-in, create the business case, and be a champion for it. The first step is self-awareness and being able to realize that none of us are perfect and we all have areas of improvement to do in that area. And once you are self-aware with your own bias, then you're able to be a better champion and advocate for it.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's so true. It's, I don't think a lot of people realize the bias that they bring in. And I love the element that you talked about even earlier around temperament, right? So I'm so curious then, when you moving out of your inbox into action, if you were talking to anybody, what would you say would be the first step for them to think about in looking at their diversity model or, anything internally?
I think just being authentic and creating platforms or environments where people can share their stories. I often approach clients in a way that, if you just share your story, your personal story, and allow others to share their story, you begin to see the layers of humanity that are present within your workplace.
Yeah, so it is really that connection, which is what, honestly, the HR field we're in and mobility is all about. you know, my friend Elena, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being with us here.
Thanks
in
for having
Leadership
me, Peggy.
Unplugged. Yeah.